Senator Jeff Merkley didn't just raise questions, he dropped a political bombshell. In a hearing that could reshape America's economic future, Merkley demanded answers about why billions in CHIPS Act funding are being withheld, even from U.S. companies that have already met their obligations. Think about that: factories ready to build, contracts fulfilled, jobs on the line, and yet no money flowing. For Oregon's small manufacturers and for communities across America, this isn't just paperwork, it's survival. The CHIPS Act was supposed to be a once-in-a-generation push to bring semiconductor manufacturing back home, protect national security, and create thousands of high-tech jobs. But now delays, cancellations, and contract rewrites have thrown everything into limbo.
Small manufacturers in Oregon who had benefited from this, and they were telling me their stories of how much more they'd been able to increase their efficiency due to the expertise brought to bear through MEP. There are 13 MEP centers signed up to recompete their 10-year cooperative agreements. I don't think that process has been initiated yet. Are you planning to initiate that process soon?
Well, I have to sort of sort it out with, I have the Office of the Inspector General has been really, had a very, very negative report. So we need to clean it up and we need to modernize it. So that's what we're working on, and then we're going to go forward, try to figure out what to do next.
Can you meet with those of us, bipartisan fashion, that have seen the powerful impacts on supporting American manufacturing by small businesses through MEP, to maybe go over the Inspector General's comments and think about how, if we need to reform the system, we can reform it, but then we can get this renewal, this contract.
Well, that sounds like a great idea. I'd be glad to do that.
That'd be
sounds
terrific.
Great.
Thank you. I wanted to turn to the CHIPS world. To implement the CHIPS Act, Commerce signed contracts with American chip makers, but you have noted publicly that you are not planning right now to distribute the CHIPS award dollars even to folks who have satisfied the contract conditions. So just to be clear, yes or no, are you currently withholding the funding to chip makers who already had these contracts?
I think the benefit of the bargain, there are numerous contracts that can be made better. For example, the TSMC contract had a $6 billion award for $65 billion of building, and then we were able to modify the award for the same $6 billion of funding, but $165 billion of building. I think commitments of 4% or less are more appropriate than a 10% funding. Just seemed overly generous, and we've been able to renegotiate them. So if the question is, are we renegotiating? Absolutely, for the benefit of the American taxpayer, for sure.
Well, I'll just note that I'm concerned. I'm concerned because the whole goal was to reinvigorate American chip manufacturing. And to some degree, you may be able to strike a better bargain, but at some point it doesn't become a better bargain, and we reduce the acceleration of our re-energizing the chip industry here.
I can't be more confident than if you spend time with us, you will see that all the deals are getting better, and the only deals that are not getting done are deals that should have never been done in the first place. But all the deals are getting better. Micron offered to go from $25 billion in commitments to $60 billion in commitments. I mean, the commitments of building in America are going better. We're just getting more value for the same dollars. So we are planning to distribute money only if we get much more building in America, which we both agree is totally in the interest of America.
Well, I hear your point. I will say that when companies find, when they put a lot of work into striking a deal, that contract then is up for renegotiation down the line, that also kind of discourages folks from being able to rely on the contracts that they've struck. So I'm just registering concern about that, and hope the rest of the deals that were struck, if they can be renegotiated to the favor, I hope they can be done and we can proceed, because I don't want to slow down the work that we invested in a bipartisan fashion to reinvigorate chip making here in the United States.
Sure.
Thank you. I wanted to turn to the tech hubs, and the department has canceled a number of, well, I think quite a few of the tech hubs awards, and maybe it's a similar situation. I think you're planning to recompete them, correct?
Correct.
And in doing so, are you committed to a full and fair process with no discrimination against those who won in the first round?
Of course.
Absolutely, great. I appreciate that. I'll tell you, the microfluidics hub in Oregon, the challenge of cooling chips is such a key part of advanced chip making as the many more layers are added to try to reach the maximum amount. And that's such an important technology for the future. And so I can tell you the community in Oregon was very excited about the investments they've already put into this strategy. And I think it's I know that they were very competitive the first round. I'm sure they'll be very competitive the second round, but I just want to put in a word of how important it is that technology continue to be pursued aggressively.
I look forward to reading it.
Thank you very much.
Senator Britt.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, it's wonderful.
And while Washington argues China and Taiwan are racing ahead, tightening their grip on the global chip supply chain, Merkley's frustration was clear. Is this really about protecting taxpayers, or is America sabotaging its own future? The CHIPS Act wasn't just another bill, it was billed as America's moonshot for technology. After decades of watching manufacturing slip overseas, lawmakers promised a bold reversal: billions of dollars in federal investment to rebuild semiconductor factories right here on U.S. soil. The goal was simple but urgent: protect national security, secure supply chains, and make sure America never again finds itself dependent on foreign rivals for the chips that power everything from smartphones to fighter jets. Companies lined up, contracts were signed, and groundbreakings were announced with fanfare. For communities in places like Oregon, Arizona, and Ohio, the law wasn't just policy, it was hope. Hope for high-paying jobs, for innovation hubs that could rival Silicon Valley, for a future where American-made meant cutting edge again. But that vision is now clouded. Billions promised under the CHIPS Act are being held back, even from firms that met every requirement. The promise of speed and certainty is being replaced with hesitation and renegotiation. And every day of delay carries a cost, not just in dollars but in trust. When Senator Jeff Merkley took the microphone, he didn't waste a second. His question cut straight to the heart of the issue. Why is funding being withheld from American companies that have already done their part? These weren't hypothetical scenarios or distant debates, these were real firms, with signed contracts, who had met their commitments and were ready to build. Merkley reminded Secretary Howard Lutnick that behind every contract sits a network of workers, engineers, and small businesses counting on those dollars to keep moving. In his home state of Oregon alone, small manufacturers had told him how federal support helped them modernize, expand, and stay competitive. To see that progress stalled by bureaucratic hesitation wasn't just frustrating, it was dangerous. Merkley's demand was clear: yes or no, are you withholding the money? He wanted answers on the record, accountability in plain sight. And while the senator's tone stayed measured, the tension in the room was undeniable. Because for Merkley, this wasn't about political theater, it was about whether America's leaders would honor their word, or pull the rug out from under the very companies they promised to back. Secretary Howard Lutnick didn't dodge the question, he leaned into it. Yes, he admitted, contracts were being renegotiated. But in his view, that wasn't betrayal, it was strategy. Lutnick framed it as protecting taxpayers, making sure every dollar stretched further. He pointed to one high-profile example: the TSMC contract. Initially, $6 billion in federal support was tied to a $65 billion facility. After renegotiation, that same $6 billion was now tied to a massive $165 billion investment. To Lutnick, this was proof that the government could demand more bang for its buck, squeezing out bigger commitments without spending an extra cent, and he wasn't stopping there. He touted similar renegotiations with other firms, claiming the end result would be more factories, more jobs, and more technology staying in America. To the secretary, it was a win-win. But to lawmakers like Merkley, this raised alarm bells. Because if contracts can be rewritten after the ink is dry, what does that mean for trust in government deals? Lutnick insisted the deals were only getting better. Merkley worried that the delays themselves could cost America its competitive edge. For Senator Merkley, the problem wasn't just dollars and cents, it was trust. In business, when a contract is signed, it's supposed to mean something. Companies invest millions, sometimes billions, based on the assurance that the government will follow through. But if Washington starts moving the goalposts, that confidence begins to erode. Merkley warned that constant renegotiation might look good on paper, but it sends a dangerous signal: deals with the U.S. government can't be counted on. And when trust breaks down, future partnerships collapse before they even start. Why would a chip maker gamble on building in America if tomorrow's promises can be rewritten? Merkley reminded the room that the CHIPS Act wasn't just about creating contracts, it was about building credibility. Without it, the very momentum lawmakers fought to unleash could stall out. Deals delayed today could mean factories never built tomorrow, and the message to innovators and entrepreneurs would be chilling: don't bet your future on Washington's word. As Merkley put it, striking a better bargain is meaningless if in the process America scares off the very builders needed to lead its tech revival. Just when the debate seemed centered on contracts and funding, Senator Merkley shifted the spotlight to another alarming issue: the cancellation of America's regional tech hubs. These hubs were supposed to be the backbone of the CHIPS Act rollout, local innovation centers where advanced research, manufacturing, and high-tech jobs would converge. But instead of building momentum, the Commerce Department pulled the plug on several awards, forcing them to start over in a fresh competition. Merkley zeroed in on Oregon's own microfluidics hub, a project focused on solving one of the toughest challenges in chip design: cooling semiconductors as they become ever more complex. Local communities had already poured resources, energy, and faith into the project, only to see it stalled and thrown back into limbo. For Oregon's engineers and entrepreneurs, the message was devastating. Progress was replaced by uncertainty, momentum replaced by bureaucracy. Lutnick assured the senator that the new competition would be fair, but Merkley wasn't convinced. Canceling projects midstream didn't look like fairness, it looked like mismanagement. And at a time when speed is critical, every setback risks ceding ground to global rivals. The CHIPS Act was never just about jobs, it was about geopolitics. Every semiconductor America doesn't make at home is one more dependency on foreign suppliers, many of them in volatile regions. Senator Merkley reminded the hearing that timing is everything. While Washington argues over contract details, China is pouring resources into its own semiconductor industry, determined to dominate the global market. Taiwan, already the world's chip-making powerhouse, isn't slowing down either. In fact, their advances in manufacturing capacity and technology threaten to leave the U.S. permanently behind. For America, delays aren't just inconvenient, they're dangerous. A single bottleneck in the global supply chain could cripple industries from healthcare to defense. Merkley's frustration wasn't about scoring political points, it was about urgency. Every day funding sits frozen is a day competitors gain ground. The longer the uncertainty drags on, the harder it becomes to catch up. And the message to American innovators is equally grim: why risk building here if the government itself can't deliver? The hearing made one truth unavoidable: while the U.S. stalls, its rivals are racing ahead, and the gap is only widening. In the end, the clash between Senator Merkley and Secretary Lutnick wasn't just about fine print, it was about America's future. On one side, Lutnick argued that renegotiating deals is simply good business, ensuring taxpayers get maximum return. On the other, Merkley warned that a bargain isn't a bargain if it breaks trust, stalls progress, and discourages companies from investing in America's comeback. The CHIPS Act was passed with fanfare, sold as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reclaim technological leadership and secure the supply chains that modern life depends on. But with contracts being rewritten, tech hubs canceled, and communities left waiting, the law's promise risks turning into another cautionary tale of Washington gridlock. The bigger question now looms: will America honor its commitments and deliver, or will this historic opportunity dissolve into bureaucracy and broken promises? Merkley's warning was clear: if leaders keep moving the goalposts, the future may not be built in America at all. And while our rivals surge ahead, the U.S. can't afford hesitation. So what do you think? Is this tough bargaining for taxpayers, or sabotage in disguise?